But when they had these difficulties, I mean the Soviet invasion, now I think Afghans, they need some time in order to be fully people to be reconciled with that that invasion. Now I think that as far as the Americans are concerned, the Afghans, they don't have any kind of opposition which you may find in some other countries. So you may find in for example, in Iraq or in Somalia, but there is a sense that the Americans supported the Afghans. I read all the time the American-led action in Afghanistan. No, there is no American-led action in Afghanistan. The Afghans themselves, they had a resistance against the foreigners in before the 11th of September. And it is the United States and even Kabul was invaded by the forces, by the Afghan forces. No American soldier was in the city of Kabul, and they invaded. Do the resistance. They came in Kabul and they secured the security of Kabul. Therefore, I can say that the Americans in Afghanistan, I think they have. It would be much better that they think much more about the economic side of their assistance in Afghanistan, and also to cooperate with the other countries of the region about difficulties with the Al-Qaeda and some of the extremist Talibans.
I'm going to hand this over to you for questions now, but before we go to Madison, I just want to underline that it is quite clear that the subject of our discussion, which was originally nation building, that the key element that has emerged is the one that was brought out by Ambassador Haraguchi when he used the word ownership, and that the discussion is really becoming a discussion of ownership, and the opposite of ownership is the word fragmentation. Ambassador Farhadi is saying there is no fragmentation, but there is no doubt that there was talk for a long time about a possible division of Afghanistan between North and South, just as there's a lot of talk today about a division of Iraq into three parts. And so that danger of fragmentation is obviously in people's minds, even if it is not part of the reality of the country and the ownership of the country to which Ambassador Farhadi has referred. Over to you in Madison for a question from your end.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate the very stimulating opening remarks by Ambassadors Kamal, Haraguchi, and Farhadi. I am Naomi Weinberger with the Florham Scholars in Global Studies, and we would like to introduce questions by, should it be one or two of our students? One to start with? Well, we'll introduce Alex, and you'll tell us. Of course. You'll tell us if you want a second question too.
Okay. What are your plans for reaching elections by January in Iraq?
January elections in Iraq. We'll take the second question also and then answer both.
Do the current borders of Iraq hold significant relevance to the ethnic groups, or is it designed for Great Britain's intentions? And could
you repeat that question?
Yeah.
Could you repeat?
Do the current borders of Iraq hold significant relevance to the ethnic groups, or is it designed for Great Britain's intentions after World War II?
Thank you. Very good questions. The question, Ambassador Haraguchi, and I think you will have to bite the bullet.
Yeah.
The second question is really the key question. What is Iraq? We know what is Afghanistan because it's been there for 1,000 years. But Iraq has not been there for 1,000 years. It has been a center of the Arab world, but not as Iraq. This as Iraq is 1932, and that's it. And so these borders are created artificially by an external force, which really does not understand the culture of the area at all. Are we going to be facing at some stage a redefining of the external borders of Iraq, which is not the same as fragmentation inside Iraq? And then, of course, the first question is, January elections, and we have been very successful in Afghanistan. Are we going to be equally successful in Iraq? What is your appreciation of the security situation?
Well, both of the questions are very, very difficult one to give you the credible answers. But I should say that as for the second question, yes, there are many countries in the world, especially those countries who gained independence in the 1960s and later on, that their national borders are, in a sense, artificially delineated. And if someone tried to redefine the borders, I think that will be the source of great conflict once again. And so the many leaders of the world, political leaders of the world, have come to the conclusion, I believe, that although some national borders might be perceived as artificial, it's better for the practical purpose, for political purpose, to try to respect the borders and try not to touch on that. And within that artificial borders, why don't we make effort to create the sort of the sense of integration among them and create a new nations? I think that is more or less the consensus among the leaders of the world.
Yes, we agree,
Yeah.
particularly in Africa,
Yeah.
Where the African Union itself has decided
Yeah.
that borders should be maintained, even though they know that all these borders are artificial and all of them were made by colonial masters, many of whom had no idea at all of the ethnic realities in Africa. But we have that problem.
Yes.
Why should we respect something merely because outsiders sitting in Berlin and Paris and London in the stage of drunkenness at 11 o'clock at night drew blue lines on maps? What is the sanctity of that, and why should we respect it when we know it is cutting across ethnic realities and creating problems as in Rwanda or as in Kurdistan today?
Well, I don't think the call for the respect of this current national border is merely serving for the interest of the outsiders. It is also the interest of the insiders themselves. Once they start asking for the redrawing of the national border in accordance with what they consider to be the more natural things, I think they will be drawn into the conflict once again. And so I should say that although there might be some unnatural things with respect to the current national borders, it is definitely in the interest of the people themselves concerned. And knowing that the international community has also been trying to emphasize, for example, in case of Iraq, lots have been emphasized, not only the outsiders, but also the Iraqis themselves said the importance of territorial integrities. And that is very, very important practical and political consideration that has to be respected, I think.
Okay, let's turn towards this question of elections. The situation in Iraq is substantially different from the situation in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, even though the security situation is not very good, we were able to ensure reasonably correct elections. In Iraq, the security situation is extremely poor, and to the extent that the United Nations